Hello, everyone. 皆さん、こんにちは. Welcome to our special webinar today on manufacturing and sustainability. I am so excited that you are all joining us today as we talk about some important aspects about how companies in the manufacturing sector is promoting sustainability and activities to protect the environment for our future. My name is Yoshi Domoto with the Japan American Society. Before we start and begin our program, we would like to thank all of our sponsors and co-hosts. First of all, our promotional partner, the Georgia Tech Cyber Center for International Business Education and Research, and our co-host, Next Generation Manufacturing. Please let me introduce my counterpart and my friend over at Next Generation Manufacturing, Miss Regina Maddox. Regina?
Thank you so much, Yoshi, and thank you to you and your team for allowing us to join the conversation today and for partnering on this. We appreciate all that you do to support manufacturers everywhere, and you all are always so gracious to share information and allow us this platform to share with our manufacturers. So our organization connects manufacturers to share best practices, innovations, and resources, and of course, great programs like today that we're happy to bring to them. So for those who may be interested, who are manufacturers, you're welcome to visit our website at nextgenerationmfg.org, and you will find information about additional programs and our partners such as the Japan American Society of Georgia, and of course our sponsors who help us bring great programs to you as well. So again, thank you, Yoshi, and thank you to our speakers too for all the great content today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Regina. We look forward to continue our close collaboration moving forward. But at this time, we'd love to introduce our moderator for the program, Dr. Eddie Saikawa. Dr. Saikawa, or Saikawa Sensei, is the Associate Professor at Emory University in the Environmental Science Department. And she has some experience all over the world, including Tokyo University, Indiana University, and Princeton as well. But without further ado, please welcome Dr. Eddie Saikawa. Saikawa Sensei, yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Thank you so much, Yoshi-san, and great to meet you all. I actually studied engineering in Tokyo, and a part of the reason I'm here today is because I received a scholarship from Murata Overseas Foundation. So I've always been very interested in industry and technology, and I'm so deeply honored to be moderating this panel with esteemed guests. As Yoshi-san mentioned, I'm an associate professor of environmental sciences, and I'm also a newly appointed director of science policy and community engaged research at the new initiative of Emory University called Resilience and Sustainability Collaboratory, RSC. So I just wanted to introduce this initiative briefly. I think it's very much linked to what we're going to talk about. As many of the Zoom audience are very well aware, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations for 2030. First being the healthy human and social systems that I'm putting it here on the left-hand side. And then second is the technology and infrastructure development. And the third is the healthy and natural systems. I think most importantly, they're the fourth one in the middle about the strong institutions and partnership. So what we are trying to do at the RSC is to really bring in different stakeholders together to move forward, linking different components together because it is a very complex system. And manufacturing is touching in each part of these. And it is my hope that the collaboratory could be a part of the solution to be engaged with the important stakeholders for a sustainable future. Manufacturing is obviously very important for climate change as well, as illustrated in this graph. About a quarter of the global greenhouse gas emissions is from the energy used in the industry. Manufacturing is very energy intensive, and it will be essential to keep us on the track for a Paris Agreement to keep the temperature below 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. Manufacturing is also extremely important for creating a circular economy. As shown here, there are only finite materials on the earth, and how we can recycle, refurbish, reuse is extremely important. Just to talk a little bit about myself, today's topic is very dear to my heart. My dissertation started off looking at how we might reduce air pollution by improving technologies. On the left-hand side is looking at how can we reduce air pollution by improving vehicle emissions, implementing the catalytic converters in China. Recently, I've been working on garbage burning. And so this on the right-hand side is showing how much garbage burning could potentially impact air pollution. So materials that are environmentally friendly that both Otsuka Chemical and Topan will tell us about and various environmental regulations to encourage these activities, I think is extremely essential. My lab also recently found a Superfund site in West Atlanta. Slag, the waste material that you're seeing on the right-hand side, has been used as fill material, as a foundation in the very low-income, mostly Black neighborhood in the West Side. The bad legacy from manufacturing could live on, but I believe that the good legacy will as well live on very long. And it is time that we hear about initiatives leading our way for a positive change. How can we create trust in the community and advance environmental justice is so essential, and we cannot achieve this without manufacturing companies and various authorities being also on board with the idea. So without further ado, I would like to first ask Mr. David Lackey, Executive Director of Griffin Spaulding Development Authority, to tell us about the exciting development.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's nice to be anywhere, I guess, in these days. I'm the Executive Director of the Griffin Spaulding Development Authority, and our mission in life is to create jobs and capital investment. And we have a park that we're going to talk about today. Two of our companies are here with us, Otsuka and Topan. And as part of creating jobs and capital investment, we're also in charge with owning and developing industrial parks, and the lakes at Green Valley is what we're going to talk about today. It is the only eco park in Georgia, and we hear that it's the only one in the Southeast United States. So we're very happy to have sustainability as one of our topics today, and look forward to the webinar as we go along. Nice to be here.
Great, thank you so much, David. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Shannon Michael, Plant Manager at Otsuka Chemical. Shannon, please.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Michael. I'm the Plant Manager at Otsuka Chemical America, located here in Griffin, Georgia, as David said. And I will, so I'll give an overview of Otsuka. The Otsuka Group corporate philosophy is Otsuka people creating new products for better health worldwide. The corporate philosophy for Otsuka Chemical is trust by individuals and the company. Trust is the dream of our society, building trust with technology and commitment, and spreading trust with people around the world. The Otsuka Group consists of 7 different business segments. Net sales for the Otsuka Group has shown a steady increase since 2016. In 2019, net sales exceeded $13 billion. The Otsuka Group comprises of approximately 47,000 employees in 195 companies, 33 of which are located in North America. Otsuka Chemical is here in Georgia, and the majority of the other companies located in North America on the West and East Coast. Otsuka Group capital structure includes Otsuka Holdings in 7 business segments made up of pharmaceutical, chemicals, food, and medical devices, just to name a few. Nature Made Vitamins, the #1 brand of vitamin tablet, is part of the Otsuka pharmaceutical business segment. Otsuka Chemical America, of course, would fall under the Otsuka Chemical business segment. Otsuka Chemical's business segment is comprised of 2 divisions, the Automotive and Mobile Technologies Division and the Life Science Division. Otsuka Chemical falls under the Automotive and Mobile Technologies Division. We manufacture terraces, a brake pad friction stabilizer sold primarily to brake pad manufacturers. I will now go into further detail about Otsuka Chemical America. Otsuka Chemical America was established in 2014. Our total production capacity for terraces is 3.75 million pounds per year. We currently have 25 employees with plans to increase the employee count as our sales increase. After a building expansion that was completed in 2020, our facility size went from 39,000 square feet to 78,000 square feet. This is an overview of Terrace's Titan series. As brake pad industry trends move from asbestos-free to fiber-free to copper-free, additional Terrace's grades were created. All Terrace's grades manufactured by Otsuka Chemical America are fiber-free and used in copper-free brake pad formulations. Typically, Terrace's makes up 10 to 20% of non-asbestos organic brake pad formulations. And this is a picture from our grand opening back in 2015. And I do thank you for your time and allow me to just introduce you to Otsuka Chemical America. And I would like to show you this brief video.
Otsuka Chemical America is a company that engage and collaborate with the customer to find new ways to utilize advanced material that will add value to their brand.
Our production process is equipped with automated technology that helps provide safeguards at every step of the process. This helps Otsuka's production team ensure efficient and stable quality.
We are committed to manufacturing a product that exceeds customer expectations by adhering to ISO 9001 standards and our own strict quality standards.
We strive to continually improve our process through advanced automation. With the ability to collect data and track trends within our process, we can maintain stable production while meeting our goals for energy efficiency and waste reduction.
As the maintenance manager, it is important to maintain our equipment at optimal condition through predictive and preventive maintenance, eliminating costly downtime and production delay.
What I like about the work environment here is Otsuka really fosters employee engagement by encouraging everyone to share their ideas and their opinions. We operate with the philosophy that we is always better than me.
Each new Otsuka Chemical titanate plant that has been created has evolved over the years by using the most up-to-date automation and technology available. In doing so, our titanate quality has remained stable through the last 40 years.
Great, thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Richard Cope, Vice President Operations at Topan USA. Richard, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. So once again, I'm Richard Cope, Vice President Operations for Topan. Topan is a corporate entity out of Japan. It has 52,000 employees, 13.5 billion in net sales across the globe. There are 20 locations in North America. Of those locations, 4 of them are heavy-duty manufacturing. And this site here in Georgia is one of the 4. The other 3 would be a printing operation, a pouch filling operation, and then a masking unit for computer chips. The global setup for Topan is printing solutions, electronics, and living industry. And the sustainable group that we're within right now in Griffin is living in industrial group. And this group is about 4 billion in sales. Just to give you an idea of what we do. So what our main priority is to take high barrier films and make them, or make high barrier films out of films that are in the marketplace. And whether it's PE, BOPP, polyester, regardless of the material compound, our job is to make it a better product such that it retains oxygen and moisture barrier properties. And in the products you'll see these in, go backwards one, are on the right over here. It's really going to be packaging products that you'll see in your everyday shelves at the grocery store. So, but when we think about environmental and where we fit into the environmental piece of the world, it really is taking the high barrier films and trying to make them have less impact on the environment. So we have a global initiative to have 0 Scope 1 or Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions in the next, by 2050. We're going to contribute to resource circulation. So we're going to go for 0 waste, and that's going to be recycling. And then, of course, water use, and it's going to be consumption and controlling, improving the quality of water and not polluting the environment. And with that, the challenge that we have is taking these products and down gauging the products into thinner products, and then making them last longer, and then making them recyclable. And that's the whole entire category that we're in. So we're a small piece of the category. Our piece of this entire recycle category is creating the barrier properties on the films that are out there. And if you see on the top right of the slide, it really is about water protection and oxygen protection. If you think about any of these products, if you can double the shelf life of a product, then you allow the manufacturers to produce the products and then leave them on the shelves and not have waste from the waste side of the product life cycle. And then also making the products thinner and more durable is the other ambitious challenge that we're after. And this chart here just shows you the where we fall into the world of maintaining water vapor and oxygen transmission rates and minimizing it. So if aluminum foil would be the test standard, where our films fall out is on the far left bottom. There's a lot of barrier films out there in the market, and everybody's objective is to move to the bottom left to be as well as aluminum foil does for protecting the products that's within. And you're trying to do this without trying to make the product thicker, of course. So you're trying to use less and less base film, which is going to be either polypropylene, polyethylene, or PET material. So what we do for Topan USA as a printing company, what we've learned to do very well is we can metalize the films. So if you think about a potato chip bag and you look inside the potato chip bag and you see the metal in there, that is actually aluminum. So you're going to try to metalize it to replace that aluminum foil that you might have bought into a really thin coating of aluminum instead of a plastic coating. The problem with that is you'll have cracks in it, which then deteriorate the water and the oxygen barrier protection. So we'll overcoat it with similar like a lacquer material. It's a proprietary material we use all across the world. We're going to overcoat it to minimize the effect of the cracking of the aluminum. And here's a chart that just shows you if you have the aluminum, even aluminum foil, and you flex it multiple times, you'll end up getting micro cracks in it. And our ability to take that same material and put an overcoat on, so it allows the GL film to have very low oxygen transmission rates after you flex the material over and over. So if you think about it in a practical situation, if you're in the grocery store and you pick up a package and it's going to be any plastic package that has barrier protections on it, which is going to be just about any plastic material that has food in it, and you flex it multiple times and you put it back on the shelf. The more often you do that, the less the shelf life of that product would be. And that's the whole idea of coating this product. So if I see where the value add is in the environmental piece, it's really for the high barrier protection is what we're after on these products, making them durable, making them transparent because the customer wants to see what's inside there. So even though there may be a thin aluminum barrier to it, around 50 angstroms, really low on the micron scale, a really thin layer of aluminum, you can still microwave it. You can see through the product enough. It's going to leave a small tint to it. But with that, it allows it to be transparent, allows you to see the product that's inside the carton. So when you get your Kind bar or whatever product you get off the shelf, you want to see what's inside there, or a mom's looking at a juice box for their child, you want to see inside the product. So that's a transparency piece. And then the environmental piece, it's really sourcing the materials, using less material, if it's PET, aluminum, PE, whatever the product is, lower the weight of it, having less weight, and then make sure it's part of the recycle stream. And then for us being a manufacturer, we're going to look at high efficiency motors. We're going to look at RTOs, so it's a regenerative thermal oxidizing system within our manufacturing site to reduce our own footprint while we're making these same materials. And that's the value we bring with being a new manufacturing operation and upgrading all of our existing operations. So it's really designed for recycling. That's how you want to start your product off. Looking at mono materials today, the way you'll print to it, and you'll bring two materials together, two really thin films to make one film. So going to a single layer film is a good idea. That reduces the packaging, going from a 48 gauge down to a 38 gauge film. If you drop down by 25% or 30% of how much packaging is used to a thinner material, making it stiffer. You want to design it for reuse, and even using bioplastics and recycled materials into these products are all ways for us to think green and be more recyclable and reduce our footprint. So thinking about recycled products, it's really going to be recycling and then mono materials. So that's a two strategy you'll take, is saying, if we're going to make the product, can we recycle it? And then as we recycle it, can you use it on mono materials and not use more material than you have to? So recycling barrier films has always been a challenge for the industry as a whole. And right now the trends are around PE. So polyethylene is where the trend is of for the recycled materials in North America, at least. And then using our labeling for high density polyethylene or low density polyethylene, just making sure people know that, hey, this is a product and this is the recycling stream it goes into. There's multiple recycle streams, so even though one plastic's compared to another plastic, sometimes you can't recycle them together. So polyethylene is the trend, and then so polyethylene-based high barrier films is what all the manufacturers are developing now, and then we're working with our customers, and our customers are going to be the printers on how to print on the PE-based materials that we make today. We will print, we develop all the materials, and it matters what recycle stream you're using, but in North America, PE seems to be the predominant one. But that's what we do here. I wanted to share that with everybody. And once again, I'm Rich Cope, the Vice President of Operations. I've been doing this for about 25 years now within the same industry. And it's very exciting times to be in the manufacturing world with the manufacturing sites having such a smaller footprint than they ever have, closer to the customers, and definitely looking at recycled materials. That's it. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Now I would like to move on to the panel discussion. But before we start, I wanted to encourage the audience to start putting the Q&A question if there is any, so that we can adjust the time to move to the audience question section as well. So my first question to everybody is, what is one sustainability goal that is unique to your development authority or company? So if that's okay, I would like to start with Mr. Lucky.
Sure, our environmental product happens to be our industrial park. So our goal is to have, through our industries coming in, sustainable site and building development. That is the goal.
Great, thank you so much. Next, could I ask maybe Otsuka Chemical, Mr. Michael?
Sure. So waste decrease, of course, by focusing on our utilization rate from raw material to finished goods was one of the first goals we set early on in production startup. Energy usage, including water, sewer, electricity, and gas decreases, as your utilization rate increases. Back in 2016, we decided to implement modifications to our production process that included the recycling of our processed water that cut down actually on the total water usage about 40% overall. And, of course, if you have good utilization rate from the raw material to your finished goods, then that helps everything else.
Right, that's so true. 40% is quite impressive.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Next, could we ask from Topan, Mr. Cope?
Yeah, so for us, the big thing is helping our customers make good decisions around recyclable or recyclable products, should I say. And it's helping them understand the difference between polyethylene, polypropylene, PET materials. They understand the difference, but what's the recycle stream they're going into is what we want to help them with. They like the properties of PET materials, which are great properties. It's a good product when you feel it on the shelf. You're happy to have it when you see it, a high-end product. Unfortunately, some of the areas don't have the ability to recycle that material, and that ends up going to landfill. So just helping our customers know that I can give you the same product with very close properties, and that's a choice that they can make. So for us, it's just developing products that helps our customers make sustainable choices.
And then when there is no infrastructure available, like I was showing at the introduction, that's very likely to be burned as well and things of that sort. So having the opportunities for the customers to know what the options are and then providing those options, that is so important. Thank you so much. So next, I would like to go into this exciting development at the Lakes of the Green Valley. So first to Mr. Lucky, is there any behind the scenes story of the development up there that you can share with us?
Well, most development authorities either develop industrial parks or work with the private developers who do that. In our case, we develop our own, but we had a vision about 15 years ago that we wanted our next park, whenever that was going to be, we have other parks, we wanted it to be green. But we didn't really know what green meant in terms of an industrial park, and we didn't mean just the trees. So we struggled with the vision until we partnered with Georgia Tech and told them, help us understand what we are talking about. And so they did that, and they came back and said, there's actually what you're trying to do, it's called an eco park. And so we said, okay, we're going to develop an eco park. And then the next thing was trying to develop or have sustainability standards. We started off using LEED, L-E-E-D, and then we found out that there actually are other standards, green globes. The state of Georgia has one, the Georgia Peach. So we decided, since there was not one standard, that we would all go ahead and just ask Tech to come help us develop our own standards. As far as we know, we're the only development authority that has their own sustainability standards. But that was sort of the vision process. The other half is getting the money to do it, since we are a government authority. And this park is the result of a special purpose local option sales tax on our citizens here. And so the first thing you have to do is hope you get on the ballot. And then the second thing you have to do is hope the people in your community vote for the SPLOST. And in this case, they did. And so that really got us going towards the SPLOST, except when we presented our case to build a park, what we got from the SPLOST was about $4 million less. So we were worried that we would not have enough money to do it right. However, the good and bad part is this was all around 2009 when we were starting in the process. The economy went sort of south, 2008, 2009, 2010. As a result of that, grading prices went way down. So because actually of a not so hot economy, we were able to make up for the $4 million loss and actually complete our park. And we would not have the park except for the vote of the people in our community.
That is a fascinating story. And I'm so glad that you were able to get the vote and also get the money that you need to build it. And I think the standard that you are developing is so influential. So I hope that that will be distributed and diffused to different parts of the state and then different parts of the country as well.
I also should just point out that the first two companies in our park are here with us today, Otsuka and Topan.
Great. So great to have you both. So yes, the two companies that are there now. So I was curious, why did your company decide to come to Georgia and also build your manufacturing facilities at Green Valley? If you could start with Mr. Michael.
Sure. So there's many reasons, but just a few. Number one, maybe good proximity, meaning close to highway, airport, close to the Savannah port. Many of Otsuka's customers are located here in the southeastern region, which is good for us. And the lakes at Green Valley is a beautiful location, and Mr. David and the Griffin Spaulding Development Authority really worked with Otsuka and helped Otsuka receive some great incentives for us to choose this area as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mr. Cope?
Yeah, so the same thing on the lakes and the green, beautiful location here. I can't say more about the location we have. Probably the hardest decision was which direction to face the plant. Do you face it south or do you face it north? If you face it north, for us, we're looking at the lakes, and that was actually the choice we took. But thinking about Georgia as a whole, the education system in Georgia is extremely strong. We knew that coming into the United States, that the education system was a big portion. Your customer base, being right near Atlanta, is within close travel. So when you think of sustainability, being close to the customers when you have a very heavy product you have to transport, is a very good thing to have. And then it's the workforce. So we're a little bit rural away from Atlanta, so our workforce is very hard and determined workforce, and they're very more in line with our Japanese sites, where lifetime employment for them is not unusual. And employees in more of a rural area think of it the same way. I don't want to travel into Atlanta. I live here in the Griffin area. I'd like to stay here in the Griffin area, and we recognize that too with our workforce. So between the workforce, the proximity, and the great location, I mean, it's win-win for everybody.
That sounds great. So I think you've mentioned a lot of the great points at the Green Valley, but Mr. Lucky, I was wondering if you could tell us what makes Green Valley really unique, and what are some of the development challenges that other development challenges, if you can tell us, or any of the development process, or what is your vision moving forward?
Well, Mr. Cope mentioned one of the things that make our park unique. For the first time, I think in Spaulding County history, we allowed in this park companies to put the rear of their building facing the street, which is totally backwards in most books. However, the front of their building now overlooks a large lake. So they're getting to take advantage. The only requirement is we ask companies to actually make that rear of the building look as good as it can look. And Topan's done an outstanding job. I mean, sometimes you have to think, is this really the back of their building? It looks so good. So they've done a good job. It's unique from two other aspects that I've mentioned earlier. We're the only game in town in Georgia, or maybe the Southeast, having an eco park, and the only development authority with sustainability standards, also created by Georgia Tech. The other part, it makes us unique. All of the companies in our park so far are Japanese, which is unique for us, and not sure how many other cities. A couple of challenges we had some that seemed kind of funny after the fact, and some that were very serious on the front end. We were trying to, having an eco park as part of planning the development, we wanted to respect the topo of each site. We didn't want to clear cut the property. We didn't want to make everything level, take all the trees out. So we graded on different elevations, and to make it have a sort of a campus effect. And we still have a lot of trees on the property, adding to the campus effect. We have a number of creeks, ponds, lakes, gas lines, electric transmission lines, all through this land. So we had to develop in and around and about all of these pieces of infrastructure. And one of the sort of humorous things now was the land was formerly used as a farm. And so as we were developing, we got a call one day and said, you may want to come out here. They were cutting some grass for us. I can say it now, it's actually close to Topan's site. And so we went out and he showed us a tombstone. Well, you can't move them if there's somebody below one. So we had to do a lot of research to actually find out where the person whose name was on that tombstone was actually buried. And after about a week of sweating over that, because that would have stopped development. About a week later, we did find out where the person was buried, and it was not in our county. We did find out that someone lived on that site that used to work for a tombstone manufacturer, and they would bring home extra ones and use for steps or whatever you needed concrete for. Also, we had to do a cultural resources study like you do with a new park. And one of the government agencies saw a Quonset hut on the property and told us it was a cultural resource. And we said, no, it's not. A farmer built it in the 50s to house his farming implements. And so it took us about 5 years to get the other government agency to decide that it was not, in fact, a cultural resource. That would also have stopped development of the park. And the big lake that's right out the front door of Topan is also one of the best bass fishing lakes in the Southeast. That was both a good and a bad thing. What do you do with it? Well, the family that owned it and developed it got it to that point, and we started thinking, I guess we're now in the fish business. So the lake is under a pond management contract, which is a little unusual for a development authority to have to worry about keeping fish healthy, but we've committed to doing that. But it does provide great fishing for our industries, which we appreciate them using. And then just the regular stuff you go through, like traffic control. This was a farm. It is on a 4-lane highway, and we're going to have a lot of trucks. So we had to decide, how do you handle the traffic for the trucks? So you have to do a traffic study to determine who gets traffic signals and who doesn't. Since the state is going away from having a lot of traffic signals these days, we ended up now had to develop a plan to get trucks in and out. And that's something that site consultants usually ask us when they come to our property: how are you going to handle the trucks? So now we have an answer for that. So that was just some of the things that we had to actually go through. Even though some may seem kind of funny now, at the time, we took them all seriously.
I think each of them is just such a fascinating story that you have to write a book about it sometime. But this is so fascinating to really hear. And then I hope that you will create a great video showcasing a tour or something during the COVID period, so that we can all really enjoy how it looks before we can visit. But I just really would love to see how it looks now. This is very interesting and very unique.
As soon as we sell the last 2 sites, we'll be happy to do that.
Sounds great. Okay, so next, I was wondering if Mr. Michael and Mr. Cope could tell us how is being a local manufacturer in Griffin, Spaulding County a game changer for sustainability and for your business operations? If we could start with Mr. Cope this time.
Yeah, so for us, our largest customer base is actually in Atlanta. That's our largest customer. In the Atlanta area within Georgia is 2 of our largest customers. And then just in the Southeast, we have the biggest part of our business. So being a manufacturer and worrying about transportation costs on heavy products is a big deal for us. So we're not shipping it from Japan to here. We're actually manufacturing here. And we're also have got several suppliers to us that we've qualified to make the same base films that we buy from Taiwan or bring out of Japan here within Georgia too. So that's really for us that location. Let's say location. It's a big deal. When you're talking about sustainability, if you don't have to ship too far, that's the biggest part of your some of your sustainability goals.
Right. Having it locally is extremely important. So yes. Next, Mr. Michael.
Yeah, I'll agree with Mr. Cope 100% on that. And I'll say something else. One of the reasons Otsuka chose this eco-friendly location was because of the regulations that were set by GSTA to ensure that each company, would do their part to maintain environmentally friendly practices. This is important to Otsuka Global as a whole because their philosophy is Otsuka people creating new products for better health worldwide. And that was very important to top management in Japan. So we appreciate that very much.
Yeah, that's so great. And so I think following up on that, I was curious, Mr. Lucky, how do you ensure that each company actually does their part to maintain environmentally sustainable practices?
Well, for their company practices, we do absolutely nothing about it. That's up to each individual company. We are concerned and are about the sustainability standards that Mr. Michael mentioned. We have our own checklist. Companies have 100 ways to score 40 points. That was one of our challenges on the front end. We didn't want to have, in fact, we were warned a couple of times, don't create something that won't attract anybody because you're non-competitive. We still compete with other states, other cities in Georgia, and we didn't want to have a standard that made it more expensive to come to our community. That might be a deterrent for some companies. So we told tech as they developed this, company scores 40 points. We wanted them to be practical points, non-expensive points, something that would really aid to the environment and not just be some political type thing that everybody feels like they have to have. Ours, we think, are very practical. And as a reward for companies meeting the standards that they've agreed to meet, we also add some additional incentives at the end of their period here to help them pay for anything that they may have had to pay for to meet our goals.
Great. So to Mr. Michael and Mr. Cope, my last question before we move on to the audience question, what does the future look like for your company? Can we start with Mr. Michael?
So the future last year was, of course, the COVID hit, and you know, our sales did decrease. But for Otska, this year, especially at the beginning of this year, our customers really increased their sales volumes almost to a point to where we're a little sweating a little to try to keep up with demand. But that's a challenge that we will focus on and meet to be able to supply our customers with the product they need. But sales is really taking off for us. You know, we're, I think, in our 5th or 6th year of production now, and we've seen a steady increase. And this year we really expect for our company to take off.
That's great. Mr. Cope?
Yeah, so for Topan, so the company has been around for 121 years as a single entity out of Topan, Japan. And the long-term investments that they make into their products, whether it's the barrier films or the manufacturing sites themselves, have a long-term view in it. So they're looking at investments that are not turning out ROI in the first year or second year. They're not as worried about individual stock price from year to year, as opposed to making investments for 5, 10, even 50 years out. So here at the plant, we've within the first 2 years went from being an expense for Topan to we're actually contributing back to the company right now. So the last 2, we're going on 3 years now, we're making a profit out of the site. So having built a site and then making a profit. And in fact, that in year 3, we decided to build in a line. So we went to phase 2 and funded it locally, so within our own site. And we have another lot that we bought beside this plant to then expand onto that lot. So we've got 2 more lines to build over here, and that will set us up for pretty much the whole Southeast. And then the decision will be made: do you want to expand to other markets to once again reduce the transportation costs, and maybe somewhere else across the U.S. But this is definitely a launching point for us.
That's great, and I think that's a great segue to the audience questions. Before I start, I wanted to say again, some people have already been putting questions, but please feel free to write your question if you have any at the Q&A button that you see below. So James Hotley is asking, how has COVID-19 impacted your sustainability initiatives? It sounds like the sales is not being impacted too much, but is it accelerated, delayed, no impact? Who wants to take it first?
Sure, I'll talk about it. He's right. Sure, in 2020, like many companies, you know, Otska Chemical America sales did decrease significantly due to the virus. However, fortunately for us, like I said, 2021 sales have increased and exceeded our expectations. And we expect this trend to continue in the upcoming years. So,
yeah, and then COVID impact for us locally within the workforce has been a challenge. I have to admit, we've done a lot of things to make sure we have policies here locally to keep the manufacturing running, because just like the other manufacturing sites, we took off really hard. I mean, all through the summer, really busy, because everybody's trying to, I'm assuming, hoarding materials or gathering all the raw materials they could just in case. And then as it slows back down, they're trying to draw inventories down. Overall, we'll have a better year this year than last year, but it's definitely a push-pull. So we're feeling a lot of pushing and urgent demand, and then it slows back down and back and forth. And then with the manufacturing operations, we're trying to balance those out, and we'll shut whole shifts down if we have any kind of COVID concerns going on within the site. Give folks time, stay at home, then come back to work, and we'll start back up. So we've expanded operations as we need to, and then we'll contract them. And we've done that all year long. So being flexible is definitely a thing that you need to be good at in this environment.
Yeah. So luckily for us, we've only had 1 employee to contract COVID, and that was during the Christmas holidays while we were shut down. So far we've been extremely lucky on that end, but you know, like Mr. Cope said, we have measures in place for that as well. But it's a big challenge in
Yeah,
manufacturing.
we do the traceability thing too. So that's my little armband here. So anybody I'm near, if I would come down with COVID, we'll know everybody else that was near me within that period of time. So we did a lot of those things early on of yeah, my mask is right here, my armband's on. I take my temperature as I walk in the door.
Yep.
It's amazing. Our plant, since we operate in a clean room, we recycle all the air in the entire plant every 6 times every hour. So within every 10 minutes, all the air is evacuated out of here and fresh air is brought back in. But even with that, we have all these other measures going on because we don't want to impact our customer.
Yep.
Wow, that's quite amazing. Mr. Lucky, do you have any challenges from COVID?
Yes, a little bit different from theirs. If you look at sustainability in terms of workforce and people keeping and getting new jobs, it has affected. As I mentioned, all of the companies in the park so far are Japanese. Japan manufacturers are one of our target markets, and because of COVID, have been very few international flights. So going back and forth, so we've not been able to follow through with some appointments that we had pre-COVID, and then you just sort of hope that you get a visit after COVID kind of settles down a little bit. So from that perspective, we have just started having in-person visits. State of Georgia has a protocol for us to follow for prospect visits. And we've been using drones a lot and flying over property, giving tours. It's been kind of tough. Everybody pile in the car and ride out and look at a site. So we do all the required things in the building. We socially distance. We wear a mask, you know, have hand sanitizer, wash your hands, clean your hands. And you can only have so many people per vehicle. And so we found out the drone videoing was a great way to do that, giving people, in fact, you get a really good look at property from the air, especially if they have a lot of trees on it where you really can't see anyway. So yes, it has affected from that perspective.
Right, COVID is impacting everybody for sure. So Mr. Lucky, there's actually another question. Did you set out to attract Japanese manufacturers with your green industrial park, or was that a happy accident? Do you think there is a model here for other economic development agencies, industrial parks seeking to attract environmentally conscious foreign investors?
I think they should all give up trying to attract Japanese companies and just let us continue with what we're doing. You know, but on the other hand, the Japanese manufacturers are one of our target markets. And what we found out was we were not sure about this eco park, how it would be received. And we found that it was very well received by Japanese companies. Two great examples are here today talking about how they make their products. And so that helped us actually get interest from companies. Some have visited this. They would call and just say, we want to come see this eco park. We make a green product and want to see what y'all have got going on. So they'll come down and visit. Some work out, some don't, but it's attracted a lot of interest. And then Otsuka was the first Japanese company that located in the park. And it seems to me that Otsuka and Topan and Maricon and Renai and the rest, they all seem to know each other very well and communicate very well with each other. In fact, sometimes they know more about our prospects than we do, which is a great networking opportunity for them and for us. And so from that perspective, we got Otsuka and a couple more heard about Otsuka locating, and then we had others hear about the park. So it was just been sort of an on purpose accident. That's a good way to describe it.
That's great. So I think this is for Mr. Cope. Are you seeking to develop biodegradable films from bio-based materials?
We don't actually make the films themselves, we coat the films. So So the coatings that we use are going to be typically aluminum oxide or silicon oxide. So that's the newest one we're using right now. It's a silicon oxide material. And then we'll overcoat it with a proprietary, like a lacquer type material. So we're taking the products that like a PLA, a plant-based polymer product that somebody else would sell, and we'll take it and add value to it for the market. And that is actually a good segue into how do you get a product that's inferior? It may be a plant-based product, may be very good, but it's not good enough. And then we can take that material and coat it. And then we do that with several materials. We've got over 121 product lines that we run within the company. Here in North America, we're doing about 14 of them. And of one of those, the PE-based material is really the direction that a lot of folks are going because of knowing what the recyclability is. Because you can do a lot of plant-based materials. Once it's on the shelf, how do you know what that is, and how do you get into the recycle stream? And if you don't have enough of it, it doesn't make sense. So I think the trend is toward PE, and it's still a ways away. It's not there today, but the plant-based materials can be used also, and there's nothing stopping us from doing this.
Great. So the next question is, what is the area of your eco park? How many companies are in your eco park? What is the goal for final size? And where is it located? And also, have you integrated photovoltaics on the roofs of the buildings?
What was the last question?
Are there photovoltaic solar panels on the buildings?
That's a great question. Each company has the opportunity to negotiate having, and they probably already have heard from a number of companies who want to put solar panels on their roofs and generate some power for them. We have around 400 acres in this particular location. We're hoping to expand that. And we have at current time 2 sites left. However, both are optioned already. So you never know in an option whether one happens or 2 happens or none happens. So we just have to wait and see. And in addition to the 4 companies that I mentioned, we also have 3 others in the park as well. And we also wish, besides having more land, we wish to continue the theme of the Eco Park.
So right now, Topan or Otsuka buildings do not have solar panels. Is that correct?
No, we don't. And really, we talk about it at times, and the discussion comes up until we actually look at the economics of it, how much energy we'll get from it. Since we do use we generate a lot of, or use a lot of power, high efficiency motors are really the direction to go for us, or the regenerative thermal units we have. We'll regenerate our own heat, bring it back into the plant, and then use it to heat the process back up. And in focusing on that and replacing that equipment, it gets us a lot more energy back into the system than anything we can do with solar panels, just because we use so much of it. And even if you look globally, when you say that manufacturing uses as much energy as it does, if everybody just went to high efficiency motors or regenerate their thermal usage, that number would be substantially lower than it would be today.
Or maybe once, sorry, Mr. Michael.
No solar panels at this time.
Yeah, once there's a lot of employees and a lot of people having food waste, maybe there's like a potential anaerobic digester or something on site,
Yeah.
Possible energy source. But I think there's a lot of potential for many different ways. Okay, so the next question is, are you working with people who are currently working in eco parks in other parts of the world? Can one learn from others' mistakes and great ideas? And is there a difference between the Japanese approach to sustainability and the approach of American firms? If so, how does it differ?
Anybody?
Does
Well,
anybody want to?
I can say it's very practical. When I think of sustainability from what we do each day, it's a very practical Hoskin plan. So you're going to look at a 1, 5, 10-year plan, lay it out, and start executing against it. And like I said, for us right now, it's our RTOs, our regenerative thermal oxidizers we have on the site, and our high efficiency motors, making sure those are always on the top other energy curves, and then using those and replacing those, because we don't want to be left behind and where our capital investments have to be too big. So those are the biggest things we're doing right now. on our site, and that's how we do with a long-term planning.
As far as any other eco parks that are out there, I will tell you that when we started this several years ago with Georgia Tech, they did a study across the country, and they came back and told us first of all, they told us that the name of what we were doing is, eco park instead of green park. And they said there were probably only 4 or 5 they could find in the US. Most of those were up in the Northeast. The most successful one in the Northeast happened to be a public-private partnership. So that got us pretty excited because we're public and the Otsuka and Topans of the world are private. So that makes a good relationship. So, but I don't know, we've done no research to see if there are any other eco parks out there. It's really a matter of having standards and developing your park in a way that looks after and protects the environment, and having some kind of standard with the companies when they develop their sites and they build their buildings. And that's really what started us off.
That's great. Mr. Michael, did you have anything else to add?
No, other than, you asked the question about differences between American companies and Japanese companies, but, I've worked for Japanese companies almost all my life. So I can't answer that question as far as the differences, but, our focus is always on waste reduction, energy reduction, any way we can, because, that's part of this eco-friendly park and part of our goals as a company. So that's what we're focused on.
Great. So the question, I think the last question is to Mr. Lucky. From a regional commission standpoint, what can we do as a local government to help facilitate a more welcoming community to our growing Japanese community?
I think each community, regardless of where you are, and this is something that we're working on here in Griffin, Spaulding County, you really need to establish a culture that is familiar and friendly and open to all of the Japanese that happen to transfer here during their 6-year period or whatever it is that they're going to be working here. You have to really bring them into your community and make them feel like the Japanese are part of Griffin Spaulding. Some communities have been doing this a lot longer than we have in terms of attracting Japanese companies in Georgia, and they've done that. The ones that are successful have actually created festivals and had ways of teaching English as a second language to even non-employees who happen to be here. Different things like getting a driver's license. I mean, so sometimes what I do, I try to put myself in that position. If I were transferred to Japan, what would I expect and how would I react? And I think you really have to walk the old extra mile in somebody's shoes there.
Thank you so much for that. I think we're already at 3 p.m. and I think there are some other eco parks maybe outside of the US, but probably this is the first in the US, and that's very exciting. So hopefully this is going to be the one that's going to really flourish in Georgia, and we are going to make many of them in the US. And I think we need everybody to make a sustainable world. So I really wanted to thank the panelists for really engaging discussion and for the introduction of this really great development, and for hosting us, your son and Regina. I would like to give it back to your son and Regina for the final remarks.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Saikawa. I know we really appreciate your time today and all of our panelists. I think we could have talked about more details about manufacturing and sustainability for hours and hours, I think, right? So hopefully we can do many more of these types of programming soon in the near future. But what's happening in Griffin, Georgia is certainly happening statewide in Georgia too. So with over 600 Japanese affiliated companies in our state who invested over $11 billion in the economy, there's a lot happening. Those Japanese companies employ 36,000 Georgians. So there's a lot happening in terms of economic development between Japan and Georgia. So hopefully we can continue moving forward and doing bigger and better things between our two countries. And then that's where we come in, Japan American Society of Georgia. We bring together the people of Japan and Georgia through business, cultural exchange, education, and certainly building friendships too. But we do have a number of events coming up in a couple of weeks. February 24th, we have a special virtual conversation featuring our own Nozomi Morgan and then Mr. Andy Conrad of Aflac Japan. He is senior executive, both Aflac Japan in Tokyo, but also holds a high position with Aflac US International too. So we can kind of learn about the secrets and behind the scenes story of how Aflac went from Columbus, Georgia to Japan and how they are one of the biggest global companies in the world today. A few weeks after that, March 18th, we have a diversity and inclusion webinar featuring a discussion on feminism in Japan. And then Shu Matsuo Post, who is an author of I Took Her Name, will be talking about his story and his adventure and journey about promoting feminism in not only Japan, but throughout the world. March 20th, we have our Japan Academic Challenge, where high school students studying Japanese will be showcasing their language skills and their knowledge about Japan virtually this year. And then we also have some upcoming events talking about sports, agriculture, and geostrategies between Japan and the US as well. So we have a lot of things coming up, but we'd like to also thank our co-host, Ms. Regina Maddox over at Next Generation Manufacturing. I know they always have a lot of events as well. So Regina, you want to tell us a little bit about some of your upcoming activities?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. And thank you again. I echo all of your comments, speakers, Dr. Sakawa. Thank you everyone for sharing that information. Japanese companies are always leaders and have the highest standards, and we so appreciate your willingness to share, and to both of the companies for opening your doors to us as well. So as Yoshi mentioned, we have some events, several events coming up. The most ones coming up next week are on February 23rd, we have one on the COVID vaccines. We have an epidemiologist who will share the latest and updates on those, and then how to roll those out to employees, communication and such, and updates to all those things. We'll have that one. We have a virtual tour of Mana Nutrition, which is a company located in South Georgia. They're a little unusual in that they're a nonprofit manufacturing company that produces peanut-based protein powder packs, paste, I should say, for undernourished folks around the world. So it's a very interesting story. And then we have a couple other virtual tours coming up, and then we'll have another an updated program on our workforce development, incorporating high school students into your workforce development pipeline. So thank you so much for allowing me time to share that, Yoshi. And thank you again to everyone. We appreciate everyone being here and y'all sharing this great information.
Hopefully we can all visit the exciting city of Griffin, Georgia sometime soon, and visit Mr. Cope over at Topan USA and then Mr. Michael over at Otsuka Chemical America and kind of see firsthand about all the great things happening within your companies, and certainly invite Dr. Saikawa to be our tour guide, and David, you can be our host, right? So thank you again, everyone. Stay safe, be well, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good.